mine was on Armin Hertz, and he lived in Germany before Kristallnacht. And he was 9 years old when Hitler came to power, and his brother was 3 years younger. And his family owned a furniture store right across the street. It was a competitor store, and during the boycotts of the Jewish store, she would run out, chase the people away. Sorry, I'm getting a little tongue-tied here. Chase the people away and say, "Don't buy here, these are Jews." And the Hitler Youth would march through the streets singing, "The Jews' blood spurting from the knife makes us feel especially good." Kind of freaked me out a little bit. During Kristallnacht, Armin's family store was destroyed, and his aunt lived in a building that had a synagogue in the back, and because they were burning all the synagogues, his mother was really worried about her, so she kept trying to call her, and she wouldn't answer, and so she had Armin go down and find out what was going on. So he went to the crowds, and he was listening to everybody, and he found out that all the residents were safe, and so he went back and told his mother. And after Kristallnacht, since their store was burnt down, they had no future, they had no living, they couldn't live in Berlin anymore. And so his mother and his uncle decided to form a plan to get them all to Belgium. The only way they could do that was if they split up, though. And so the two boys made it to Belgium, but his mother was stopped and sent back to Berlin, and she eventually made it over to England, but the English government wouldn't let her two kids join her. And unable to get ration cards, the two boys, they were living by themselves on the street, and the people who were giving out the ration cards, they were like, well, children would never live on their own, so this is obviously a ploy to get more cards. And they actually really needed it, so Armin decided to get really hard jobs just to get enough to make a living, and they found a really cheap place called a mansard that was just underneath the roof. He said it was awful because every night they were eaten by bed bugs, and they always had to go out on the streets to beg for food because they didn't have enough money. Eventually, Armin's brother, was taken in by a Jewish family that had no children, and so with him safe and to being taken care of, Armin was able to get a job at a bakery, and he actually slept in the bakery at night on the benches. He did that until June of 1942. And with the roundups and work camps, to get people to get into the work camps, they were offering food and stuff like that because everyone was starving. But when people saw that nobody was coming back, nobody was volunteering, so they did the roundups. And Armin was caught in one of these, and he was sent to France to build the Atlantic Wall, which he said was a wall as thick as a house that went from Holland all the way through Belgium and France. With sanitary conditions being so poor, they had to dig their own ditch to go to the bathroom and stuff like that. He became sick with typhoid fever, and he was sent to a hospital in France. But when he recovered, he was sent by train to Auschwitz. And he had said before that they had never heard of Auschwitz, they didn't know what it was. They did not march us there to the camp, and the gate with the large sign over it, Arbeit macht frei, they forced us. If they didn't walk fast enough, the soldiers had truncheons and they'd hit them over the head with it. Once they got there, their hair was then shaved off, numbers were put on their arms. Armin's was 72, 55 too. And they were given pajama-like uniforms with wooden shoes. They were then given a speech by a man who was in charge of the block, and he said, "You're going to work here, this is a work camp, the only way you can get out here is through the chimney." And of course, they didn't know what that meant. That's the sign of Auschwitz, and the top is actually from Dachau, and I took that picture, but I figured it probably looks the same, or similar at least, to Auschwitz. Work in Auschwitz. Armin later applied to learn how to make bricks, and he did that mainly because it was a safe, well, not safe, but it was a protection from the harsh weather. They were then sent out to help the Polish people who were working for the Germans to lay bricks and mortar. And he said these Polish civilians went home every night to Katowice, or the city of Auschwitz. They saw what was going on there. With only a piece of bread that was divided into four, and they only got a quarter for a day. 1 liter of so-called soup and tea made from whatever leaves were possible. It was practically impossible to survive. Amazingly, Armin stayed there for 2 years until January 18, 1945, when they evacuated the camp. He was part of the death march too, and all the evacuations and things like that. And Armin and the prisoners were sent to Breslau, where they were put in overcrowded barracks with no beds. After a day of sitting on the floor, soldiers eventually came in and said, "We need people to come work for us." And so, thinking that it was much better than what he had right now, he went, and the next day, February 17th, 1945, the workers were given a shovel, and they dug clearances in the woods. They did that until February 26th. They were then put in open cars with a bucket in the middle for sanitary needs, with no food and about 100 people per car. They rode in the train for 6 days and 5 nights, and every once in a while when it snowed, they had a little bit of water, and that's all they had. And he said people were dying like flies. Just imagine how awful that was. The train often stopped en route. When a civilian would pass by, they would scream and yell, but they wouldn't give us anything. The train stopped in Buchenwald, Germany. He said, "In our car, there were 107 people. Anytime somebody died, we took their clothing off, put it around us to keep warm, and put the dead bodies over to one side. When we arrived in Buchenwald, they opened up the train, and the few people that were still alive could hardly walk. I myself, my toes were frozen, had no toes left. All of them fell off." They were then put in the barracks, the sick not getting food rations because they thought, well, they're not working, they don't need food. And if that continued for another day or two, Armin said that he probably wouldn't have made it. Luckily though, what happened? There we go. Luckily, the Americans came in and they liberated them, and he was so delirious that he had just thought there were more SS guards and that they were just switching out or something, but then he realized that it was the Americans, and they were there to liberate them. And right away, they took the sick, like him, to the hospitals in Weimar. And he said the German doctors and nurses, they claimed to have not known anything about the camps, that nobody knew what went on. But the prisoners of Buchenwald often were sent into Weimar to clean the streets and dig trenches and defuse drop bombs. So, you know, you think they were wondering why there were striped uniforms there, so they must have seen them. This I thought was really interesting too. He said that the Americans would not let us hit the SS men. I remember the guy next to me wanted to, and the American officer held back his hand and told him, "Don't do that. If you do that, you come to the same level they are." Afterwards, the Belgian, the Dutch, and the French governments came in and sent delegates to find out anyone that was a citizen of their countries. He told them a little lie. He told them that he was Belgian. And because they had no papers to prove that, he was able to go to Belgium, and he found his uncle, or got in touch with his uncle. His uncle sent papers to his family. He actually found his brother in Belgium, and his brother was able to hide in the Belgian mountains and stay there throughout the entire war, so he was safe. And he found his mother in England, and together they moved to the US, and he got married, he started a new life, and they had 2 lovely daughters and 4 grandchildren. This was the conclusion. He said, "We try not to remember. It's not easy. For 36 years, I couldn't talk about it. I'm able to speak freely about it now. My wife can tell you that for years, I used to wake up at night soaked in sweat. When I came to this country, if I saw a policeman on the street, I used to walk over to the other side of the street. It was not easy." So, yeah, he went through a lot, but luckily he was able to overcome, and he had a family, and he said, "It's doing a lot better now." So.